Hi, this is Drew Tignanelli. This is the Financial Pulse update for July 2012. I'm sure you're sick of hearing about Europe, but it's important that you continue to understand that Europe's an issue. In this most recent new email that we just sent you, there's a link to an article that George Soros wrote about what's happening in Europe. And it is the best description and understanding of the European situation I've read. Now, I'm not a big Soros fan, but economically, he's very good. Politically, I'm not too keen on some of his thoughts, but economically, he's worth listening to. Let me just summarize real quickly the issue with Europe. And you have to understand that this is a sovereign crisis and a banking crisis all at the same time, and those are the most dangerous for world economic growth. When you have a banking crisis and a sovereign crisis, there's nothing more dangerous. So, here's the issue. When the European countries came together to form the euro, they said, we're going to create the euro for 17 sovereign nations, and then someday in the future we're going to try to come together as sort of like the United States of Europe. The problem is that they should have come together as the United States of Europe and then brought the currency on after they were a sovereign nation of one, not 17. Now here's the reason they wanted to do the currency first and then the nation later. The nation building was the tough part. The currency was easy, and it was the prize at the end of the rainbow. And they wanted it first without doing the difficult work of coming together as a sovereign nation. So the currency for the southern nations lowered interest rates, lowered inflation, and enriched the people. Because think about it, if you had liras or drachmas every year or two, they would devalue the currency, and next thing you know, your currency and all the liras and drachmas you had accumulated were worth a lot less money. You couldn't go and buy a Mercedes, which was manufactured in Deutschmarks, which were appreciating in value. You couldn't go out and buy a Mercedes easily unless you were extremely rich. So the southern nations got that benefit. Now here's the northern nations. Why would they want to do it? Well, every time they went to sell a Mercedes down in Italy, they'd say, well, we manufactured this in Deutschmark. We can't just accept a small amount of lira for it. We've got to get a lot more lira. And next thing you know, there was no sale. So the euro made it possible that they could manufacture a car in euro and sell it to an Italian or a Greek or a Spanish person in euros. And it was a marriage made in heaven, I guess you would say, from their perspective, because now those southern nations were enriched and the northern nations got richer because they could sell more goods to more people. Now here's the problem, though. The southern nations overspent, and they gave IOUs for all the good things they bought from the northern nations. The northern nations got wealthy, but they got wealthy in IOUs from the southern nations. Sounds like a Ponzi scheme to some degree, but the problem now is that if they go under, all the IOUs the northern nations have become somewhat worthless. So the only way they can keep their IOUs valuable is by keeping the southern nations financially solvent. It's almost like a vicious circle. It has to end sooner or later, and it's not going to end pretty. So how do they do it? They either do it by forming a United States of Europe. Now, what are the chances of those 17 nations doing that? I'm not going to put a high probability on that. Or they break up, they lick their wounds, and they move on. I don't know what the probability of that is. As long as they have the financial resources, keep kicking this can down the road, I think that's what they're going to keep trying to do. So that's a problem. And therefore, I believe that the risk-reward ratio of the markets are still extremely dangerous. We're in a secular bear market, which means that the market goes up, hits its previous high, and can't seem to penetrate that. That previous high was 13 to 14,000. Right now we're at about 13,000. So we're approaching the high end of what the secular bear market should be, the ceiling on the market. The downside could literally be as much as 50%, and that's why we believe that the risk-reward ratio just isn't that significant at this point in time. and we're staying cautious. Now let me tie in a financial planning topic with this, and that financial planning topic is income taxes, because we're running out of the 2012 tax law, expires at the end of this year, and when it does, we click into higher taxes, higher estate taxes, and a new Medicare tax, 3.8%, on unearned income, capital gains, interest, dividends, if you make over $200,000 or $250,000. In addition, you're going to only get medical expenses as an itemized deduction if you make or you spend over 10% of your adjusted gross income. Currently, it's only 7.5% of your adjusted gross income. These are issues that you're going to have to be looking at, and the best way to do that is in our personal financial review, where we meet with our clients once a year and we talk about topics like your portfolio and your administrative titling of your beneficiaries, your money links, and all those kinds. We look at the administrative things, but we also look at your financial planning topics. And income taxes is a big one we're thinking about this year, trying to figure out where the issues are and how we're going to address them in 2013 and beyond. So these new taxes that are coming up and the uncertainty of what they're really going to be is causing some pause with investors, causing pause with business owners, which is putting a drag on the U.S. economy. And not to mention, our deficit is rising dramatically. And the deficit that is now at 100% of GDP is causing a drag on our economy. And the economic statistics that I recently saw said that when your economy goes over 90% debt to GDP, your country is unlikely to grow at a faster rate than 2% per year. And our country is used to growing at 4 to 6% per year. We're now over that 90% threshold. And so that doesn't give me encouragement that we're going to see a rapid rise in our market at this point in time. Now keep in mind, I am long-term an optimist in a big way. I believe technology is coming with a new world. Out of every one of these downturns in the past, you've always had a technological revolution, but you have to get through the last phase of the bear market before you're going to get that revolution. So let me just wrap up in saying that I think the risk-reward ratio is difficult right now. You should be extremely conservative in your 401ks and 403bs, and even if the market continues to move a little higher and a little higher and a little higher, I think that the risk is still fairly tremendous out there, and you just need to be cautious. That is our July wrap-up. We'll be back hopefully with one in about the middle of August, and for now, this is Drew Tignanelli saying God bless.